I'm really excited for Elise to be joining us today. You've probably seen this week we've been posting on LinkedIn, so you may have had a quick look at Elise's LinkedIn profile. And if you're very, very observant, you may have seen on our website under our coaching section that we have actually excitingly got a partnership with NEDonBoard that Elise and I will talk about in a little bit. I'll just let Sue come in. Oh, there she is. So what I'll do is I'll hand over to Elise. She's going to share a couple of slides, talk about her background and give you a bit of information about NEDonBoard. But as always, it's really interactive. If you have any questions, obviously those of you in the office, Charlotte, pop it in the chat box, raise your hand, that's absolutely fine. So Elise, give us a wave, unmute yourself.
Hi, ladies, and good afternoon. Very pleased to be with you today. It's a small group, so how it's going to be very interactive, and I think it's a great platform to ask all your questions. So I've put together some slide just to make sure we are on the same page, and just to talk a little bit about my background, why I came to work for NEDonBoard Institute of Board Members, and then just a couple of slides about the non-exec role and what it has become a positive career choice for many professionals. And maybe we can start for me to understand whether you're already on board. And when I say on board is in a non-executive capacity. So if you are a school governor, maybe, or if you're already acting as a trustee for a not-for-profit organization, then it will be good for me to know. So if you may want to use the chat, or you can raise your hand, I'm fine with it. But so looking at the chat, so Sophie, you're a trustee for a charity. Tina, you're also on the board. Sue, also a trustee of a charity. Okay, that's good to know. There are lots of similarities between the trustee role and what we call non-exec, which tends to be for commercial organizations. But the reality, when you're a trustee, you're a non-executive director and you have the exact same responsibility. And sometimes it's actually more responsibilities to be trustee because you fall under the charity commission as well as company law. So it's additional responsibility. And yes, CU advisory work for startup is also very similar to non-exec director position. So I'm the Chief Operations Officer at NEDonBoard Institute of Board Members, and so maybe I'll start with a few words about NEDonBoard, if you don't mind. So we are a professional membership and development body, just dedicated to non-executive directors and board members. So what we do is to provide independent, curated, and practical insight into the non-executive director role. And we also provide all the educational content that members and non-executive directors need to excel in the boardroom. Typically, a lot of professionals think that you get a non-exec role and that's it, you're a non-exec. But the reality is, being a non-exec is like being in an executive role. You need to invest in your ongoing professional development to still bring a positive contribution to the board. So provide that content for non-executive directors to continue to learn and be effective as they discharge their responsibility. We are united in our beliefs that as an organization, our members, like non-executive director, are really fundamental to driving sustainability and prosperity for the benefit ultimately of society and to preserve our planet. So that's really ultimately the mission of NEDonBoard, is making sure that decision makers in the boardroom are equipped to take decisions that takes into consideration profits, obviously, and shareholders, but also have consideration for broader society and all their stakeholders, including the planet. So that's really what drives what we are doing. Katie asked me to talk a little bit about me. So my background is in financial services. I spent about 10 years with Goldman Sachs in their credit risk management function, so responsible for credit risk management, and that was ranging from credit lines to various entities and analyzing companies from a credit perspective, understanding some of the products and the credit component of the product sold and traded by Goldman Sachs. So I was first, kind of governance is something that I came across to the financial crisis. So in 2008, 2009, at the time, a lot of changes happened for Goldman and other financial institutions because we got a new regulator. So the way we were doing things, that, from a credit perspective, we were extending credit lines. It was very casual, I must say. And with the new regulator and all the changes that affected the financial services industry, we had to move to something that was consistent, transparent, with much stronger governance in terms of the process to make decisions to get to an internal credit rating or to extend credit lines. So I started, considering governance at that point. After my experience with Goldman, I moved to a spin-off of Goldman, Rothschild Life, an insurance company. And it was an interesting move for me from a career standpoint. Also, thinking about my own journey with governance, we had to set up Rothschild as a standalone entity, separating the Goldman governance from the Rothschild governance. And Rothschild being a regulated entity, it needed to have all the governance structure and the governance framework that the regulator expected. And also Rothschild had no policyholders. They are pensioners in the world of Rothschild. You needed to have the governance framework in place to protect the interest of those pensioners. So when I've got involved more understanding governance at that point, because I was involved setting up the board committees and then the executive committees. And at the time I was doing still in the work of credit, making credit decisions. And I increasingly incorporated governance considerations into my analysis. And there were times where I express a negative opinion on certain investments because of governance considerations, where I thought the governance of this organization isn't solid enough. They are not equipped. If something goes wrong, they don't have the right skills and expertise in the boardroom. They don't have anything structured at executive level. So for me, that became a source of concern and really something that was part of my credit analysis. So then I left Rothschild for different reasons. And it was, having had that background with Goldman and Rothschild, I wanted to move into a role that was more meaningful. And governance was for me an obvious choice, because I strongly believe what I've said at the beginning about the mission of NEDonBoard, that if you have great decision makers in the boardroom, then have good decisions that will benefit society and the planet. And from my perspective, it's really at board level that you have the most leverage. So, because in any organization, especially in the UK, where you have a unitary board structure, any decisions taken at board level will cascade down the organization. So if you have a positive impact in the boardroom, it will benefit the entire action and decisions of a company. So we have a better world. So any questions at this point?
Nope, I think we're all good. I think from my perspective, Elise, when did you kind of obviously you'd taken that short break in your career, or you'd left Rothsay. What was the kind of decision to then go and kind of look for a non-exec role at that point?
So I first started, I am an executive with NEDonBoard. I done a lot of work since starting with NEDonBoard. I have done a lot of work to identify path and the roadmap for any professional to secure their first role, because what I found is in the NED market, you have lots of NED organizations, and they all have kind of training courses about what it is to be a non-executive director, what are the responsibilities, what are the duties, what are the obligations. But actually, there was nothing to really take you through the process to secure a role, step by step, and in a very practical way. So, it's how do I construct my positioning? How do I position myself for non-exec role? How is my NED CV? How do I go through interview? How different is that process from an executive process? So I did a lot of work with NEDonBoard. So it was obvious for me that I needed to go through the process myself and test path that I had identified for our members and the broader community. So I secured my first non-exec position about 2 years ago, and I currently have 2 positions. There is a path that is different from executive. There are a lot of similarities, but I found that the non-exec role is slightly different because it's not a full-time role. So you come in and out, yet you have lots of power on decisions, and you have lots of responsibilities. So it's important to understand what you are getting into, and also a lot of professionals waste time because they don't know where to start. So, yeah, it was important to identify the roadmap and test it myself. And one of the slides I wanted to go through, it's the why people become non-execs. It has definitely become a positive career choice, and there are an increased number of professionals that start the NED career earlier. So 10, 15 years ago, you became a non-exec at the point of retirement. That was really moving to a portfolio career when you were, 60 plus, and things have changed. So a lot of professionals, like some of you on this call, already have a non-executive position in addition, I guess, to being a full-time employee or having an exec role. And it's all great because you encourage people get into non-exec positions earlier in their career, and it has a positive effect on diversity because you attract younger professionals, and typically from different backgrounds. Those that were moving into NED roles at retirement at very, very similar background, they tended to be men, white, 60 plus, with a strong emphasis on for partners, so very focused on risk management, audit, a lot of finance directors, which, it's very important. You need to have those skills in the boardroom, but I think role of the board has evolved and it has complexified. So you need different skills and expertise today in boardroom. You need marketing, you need HR, and the COVID crisis definitely demonstrated that. You need people that understand technology, that understand the digital transformation, change management, sustainability. So you need all those, you need all those skills.
Christina.
Hi, apologies for joining slightly late. Previous call overran. I am super excited about this topic. Thank you for organizing this call. I obviously have looked into the net topic myself. I work as a fintech advisor, including for startups, so I have a good visibility of what's happening in the market for my area of expertise. And I thought I could bring a ton of input, experience, and support within that net position. I also looked at, similar as Elise mentioned, at a company that promised, the stars and the moon when you come on board, the courses, the coaching sessions, CV writing, and obviously nothing happened after that because I felt that they were not really equipped with the right support. People were not necessarily knowledgeable. Coaching is not the same. So I just felt that there's and this is not just one company. This is obviously in the market several companies that offer these types of services. So it just started with a lot of enthusiasm and ended with a lot of disappointment. So what would you say is the best way to really take the first step? Is it within an organization that claims that they have the network and the platform for these types of roles? Or is it, working with various kinds of companies and through that cooperation and collaboration potentially to secure the first role? As we know, people look at your LinkedIn and your CV, the moment you have one, it feels like a stamp of approval, and the other roles can potentially roll in just because someone else already kind of vetted you and accepted you for that role within their own business. So what would you say is critical advice in that stage?
So first of all, I'm sorry you didn't get a good experience. I think it's paramount when you join a net organization that you do your due diligence. Some organization is exactly as you said, they sell dream. They tell you that you will make money. And that you have great profile, that you'll be contacted, whatever. The reality is different. It's different because it's a competitive market, and also because non-executive positions are remunerated, but the remuneration level is very different from what you can expect from an executive role. So you shouldn't go into NetSheet for money because it won't happen. It just won't happen. A lot of roles are pro bono in the charity sector, but even outside the charity sector, especially when you work with startups that just don't have the funds to pay you. At best, you'll have some a share of the equity. So yeah, it's important to differentiate the various net organizations. And NEDonBoard, we are an institute, professional body. We are not for profit. We are not a commercial organization, just selling the dream to make money. And we have also a true talk. So I'll never say it's easy. I'll never say you'll be contacted. I'll never say you'll make lots of money, because it's simply not true. It's not true. You can have additional income. Some roles, are compensated, and you can talk about compensation level later on. But the process to secure a role is lengthy. You need to make applications. Being unsuccessful is part of the process. It's just part of the process. Your applications will be turned on, even if you tick all the boxes, and we can also talk through that. In terms of like the core of your questions about what's next for you. So for us, what's really important is starting with your value proposition. It all starts with your USP and what is it you're solving for. You cannot approach an organization or even go to a network event with other non-executive directors if you haven't solved that question. Otherwise, you're just going to be talking, but you need to have identified what is it you will bring, what value you bring to to a board as a non-executive director. And that work is something you need to do with yourself. So when we talk USP, value proposition, it's really for you to identify the set of skills, the knowledge, the expertise that you've developed over the years. And it's really the value you'll bring to a board. So when I think about my career and my value proposition, I've really emphasis on my risk management background, because this is where I come from. I put emphasis on governance, because this is what I'm doing as part of NEDonBoard. And I'm also an entrepreneur building NEDonBoard. NEDonBoard was set up just 10 years ago. So it's still a relatively young institute and professional body. So I'm on that entrepreneurial journey. So these are like the three pillars of my value proposition. And when I approach company, this is what I say. This is what I'm solving for. So you need to find what is it you're solving for. What are your strengths? What are, it's really your experiences and your expertise. So if you've been in a finance position, then you understand the accounts. You're going to be able to provide value in terms of checking the integrity of the accounts, discussing with the finance division and challenging the finance division. It can be anything, sustainability, HR, strategy, but you need to find what defines you. So it's all starts with your USP. Once you have your USP, you need to find your matching party, because you have an appointment when there is a match between the need of the company at a given time with the value you will bring, what you're solving for, and you have a match when the two work together. So it's finding that organization that will need your skills. And how you do that, I guess that will be the next question, is there are three ways really to secure a non-exec position. First one is you may contact executive search firm. Some of them have like a board practice, and you can work with them. The thing with exec search is they're not super open to first-time non-executive directors, just because and it's just their business model. They will forward names that the company is likely to like because they get paid. They don't work for you, basically. So they'll put forward names that are likely that have high chance of being appointed, because those professionals are appointed, they get paid. So they don't have lots of incentive to push forward applications that are, let's say, outside what is expected. So they'll tend to put forward names that, already experienced non-executive director, etc., because it's it's less risky. It's less risky for them. So, but, you can still work with exec search, but you shouldn't just rely on that channel to sort the right roles for you. Then another element is jobs board. So you do have jobs board. You have jobs board on the NEDonBoard membership. Jobs board is included. You have a platform like LinkedIn where you have jobs on offer. You have a public appointment. You have a jobs board for all the public appointments, and you also have jobs board dedicated to charity sector. So jobs board are a way to identify roles that are on offer in the market. You need to go through the role specification and see whether you're solving for any of the issues that the role specification forward. So jobs board is the second channel. And the last one, which is very important and more important than when you search for exec roles, it's networking. So we're in 2023, and majority of non-exec roles are not advertised. That's the reality of the market. Since I've joined NEDonBoard about over 5 years ago, we've seen a change with more roles being advertised, because it has become clear that if you want to really improve diversity on boards, the only way to do that is to attract applications from diverse groups. If you don't advertise the role and you need to appoint an exec, you will always go to existing circles and your existing network, which is more likely not to have people like you, which doesn't help diversity. So networking is very important. So Katie, you joined a NED organization. Have you attended some networking events, and what has been the outcome?
So no, thank you for this input. This is very helpful. Obviously, I have spent a lot of time defining value to make sure that I understand what I can offer. It's kind of like a sales pitch, isn't it? The moment you speak with someone, you need to be very clear what you can bring to the table. Networking is very common for me to do on a very regular basis. It's part of my current work within my industry to make sure that I not only source new work and business opportunities for me, the projects, as well as connect with the fundraising options. So it is a normal day-to-day part of my work anyway. It is definitely it has not been explored in terms of these job boards. So that is something that I am definitely going to look into and just to see how that can move forward. But it's not that common that you would come across an opportunity where you can just pitch yourself for a NED role. It's more about the business as such, but I have not come across a single conversation where this would be something that we can actually, put on the table so far. So I'm either not attending the right types of events where this could be a discussion point, or, there's something that I'm not doing and I probably should be doing.
I'm going to say, how is everyone else? Have other people got something to Tina? You might be able to have some.
Yeah, and I sort of agree, but I think there's a little bit more positivity than I do understand your. It is a numbers game. I guess in my experience, I think a lot of people are doing it. I think we just have to accept it's a competitive market. So in your exec world, you probably if you looked at a job in an organization, you think, oh, my next 2 jobs are here, and there's probably 5, maybe not even 4 people who can go for that job. And it's kind of title based as opposed to skill set based, I guess, is my observation. So you go from a business manager to a CEO, whatever that is. I think with the non-exec world, it's just more competitive, and so you just need to persevere. Really, it's a numbers game, and there's a lot of people doing it. You're opening the pool of people who can apply, and so I think that just creates a bigger competition. You just have to set, I'm not saying it's easy, and it isn't, and I'm still on the journey, but I think you sort of have to set yourself as what makes you different and what can you really add value. And I think that's really good, positive. I think they are the sources of income, mainly. A lot more advertised from what I can see, because I think there's a need to with all the corporate governance code changes. I think first-time NEDs are being looked at more and more, actually, when I see adverts, because I think people are trying to understand that it shouldn't be just a profile of themselves, who kind of go on that board. So I think there are a lot, but it's, I guess my overarching experience is it's a bit of a numbers game, and I do understand the value that an organization can bring to you, but I just don't think personally, and please don't take this the wrong way, Eloise, I think one organization won't solve the problem, because sometimes you get headhunters get good roles and they put them on LinkedIn. There's so many different ways you can get into or continue to drive it. So really, it's just about the effort and broadening your horizon, networking, building relationships with headhunters, and they know you and they think you might be right for it, and also have that. So no, I don't disagree, but I just think it's more I definitely think first time Neds, you can get it. I think it is more difficult, but you know, as you say, sort of a bit of a badge of honor once you've got it. But I think people are looking to change that mold quite a lot in what I've seen in the last 6 months since I've gone on that journey. So I think it's a bit about perseverance as well. That would be my feedback.
Fair.
Yeah, I think I agree with most of your points, Tina. It's a number game, and it's what I said. Being unsuccessful is part of the process. It's part of the number game. The more applications you do, some applications will be unsuccessful. Some application you will be called for interviews. Some interviews you will do great. Some interviews not so much. And sometimes you'll do great, but people will do even better and have better interviews. So it's a competitive market. And sometimes even if you fit the person criteria, you have great interviews and you can really bring value. There'll be someone that has the same profile as you, but also an other thing that you don't, like have a better network in that particular industry, or sometimes it's criteria around diversity. So we've seen that, and typically it's more men complaining about that, but where they've been unsuccessful just because, you know, there was a woman, there was a person of color, there was like, and it fits the diversity commitment of the organization. So it's just part of the process. But all our members and graduates who persevere, everybody gets a role at the end. Sometimes it takes 3 months, sometimes, you know, it takes 12 months, and it depends on what's your approach. Are you willing to take a role that may not be how can I say that? Let's take my example so that it's not, you'll see how I approach that. I started very small. So I'm building my experience as a non-executive director. I choose a small charity where I knew I could bring tons of value. If I go for a bigger role, it's going to be more competitive. So the process will have been longer. And it was less clear the value I could bring. So I was willing to take like a really small charity that has less complex governance problem, but I could really get involved into you know, some of the challenges that they have. So when I want to move to a bigger role, then I can really demonstrate all the value I brought to that board, the impact I've had. So it's a question of also aligning your aspirations with where you are at. And I think for Tina, now that you have experience as a non-exec, you don't need to go through the charitable sector to get that first experience. You can apply for Kate role. You have just a much better chance to being appointed. So it's kind of being realistic about where to start, and you know, bigger the role, higher the compensation, the more competition there will be most likely for the role.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I did just, so my background, I mean, I have done 10 years in the not-for-profit sector while I've had my exec career. So I did, and I don't think I did that deliberately, but actually I would recommend that if anyone has the time, because it's really rewarding. And you know, as Eloise said, it did give me experience. And I have no doubt that when I took the decision to become like a NED, you know, as a portfolio career, that helped me, you know, particularly some of the names on my CV. So I don't think that was, I'll be honest, it wasn't a conscious roadmap of plan, but actually it did help me, and it does. I think just to give you a number that might give you some perspective, and so rejection is part of the process, and I've definitely had it. I think there was one role in a social housing fund that I applied for, and it wasn't, so it was fairly well, it was okay, it was under 10k a year, it wasn't sort of, you know, big one in terms of the sort of, so that's kind of probably okay. Average pay for social type finance, not for profit. I think they had 55 people apply for one role. So it is a big, you know, it's a really different environment to, I'm sure there's not 55 people applying for the next exec role like HSBC when I was there, you know, so it's a kind of different environment. So I think it absolutely works, and there's lots of ways to get there, and definitely organizations have helped me develop the things that Eloise mentioned. So I would recommend them, whichever one suits you. But I just don't think the adverts are in one place. That's all I would recommend to everyone. They're all over the shop.
But what do you think of LinkedIn in particular? Because it seems like as a NEDonBoard role board, first of all, there's not a lot of detail sometimes on the roles themselves, and it really feels like a black box. Yeah, you put something and you never get any feedback. Whereas new role, for example, you know where your application is, what's happening. I think, Tina, as you said, you also get stats on how many applicants there were, which is really insightful.
To be honest, just my experience is, and it's something I found very difficult, if I'm honest, I'm sharing, is that I always ask for feedback, and I don't like it, and I always ask for feedback, be it, and it's something I was taught by someone, a coach of mine, and I don't really like doing it, whether I got the job or not, but I do it, and that's how I got that stat, to be honest. And one kind chairman said to me, actually, he met me after I wasn't successful, and he talked to me about why. So some people don't come back to you, it's a black box, and you have to not take it personally. And then others are really kind, like this chairman, and gave me a really useful insight as to why I didn't make it from the long list to the short list. And actually my cover letter has changed as a result of that feedback. So that's all I do. I don't think it works all the time. And I have to say, the whole phrase that everyone's taught me anyway, just to share my experiences, you have to kiss a lot of frogs and all that, right? A really horrible phrase that everyone uses, but it cynically is a numbers game. And it's a lot of effort. So yeah, but it's rewarding when you get there, I think, as Eloise will say.
Yeah, I think you shouldn't, when you search for a role, you should really leverage everything that's available. It's the jobs board, it's networking, it's executive search firm, is all your direct and indirect connections. In terms of getting insight into your applications, do what Tina says, and it's something I'm very happy to share some blogs that we've written about getting feedback. And sometimes you won't get feedback, and it's just reflective of the organizations you applied for. Some HR department or some organizations, because sometimes it's not handled by the HR department, just it's organized, and it's just a reflection of their culture and their organization. So sometimes you won't get feedback for public appointments. And I want to mention, in terms of when I say it's competitive, so I know for a role like the British Library, which is a prestigious public appointment, they receive 700 applications for maybe one or two dead roles available at a point in time. So it's, for some role is extremely competitive, and if you ask for feedback because you haven't made the shortlist out of 700 applications, then you won't get it. And also because it's not, the selection isn't done manually. There is like a system to do the triage and select applications that have some keywords. But if you've had interviews, you will get feedback. It's very likely that you will get feedback, and you should always ask for feedback, even if you don't get any, because as Tina said, when you have feedback, you'll have insights about the application process. You'll have recommendations to improve maybe your CV, your cover letter, or improve your answers to some of the interview questions. And also, you want to build relationships with people that have interviewed you. And the average tenure of a non-executive director is typically 3 years, be renewed once, maybe twice, but there is rotation. So we have examples within our community of professionals not being successful and then applying 3 years later and getting the role, because they kept the relationship that they established on the back of the first interview round. So always ask for feedback and take the interview as a way to build relationship and expand your network. And also sometimes you also have those examples of members being interviewed, not being successful, but being recommended for another role. Because as I said, a lot of roles are not publicly advertised. So the chair in one organization may be a net for another organization and may recommend you for that other organization. So the network effect is very important.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Steph, how have you been finding kind of, with obviously at the moment work's very busy, I know that. And I see on LinkedIn as well, you've been hugely active with your new role as well.
Yeah, so it is quite busy. I mean, I've been chair of the local scout group for about 3 years now, and that was pretty much a greenfield site when I joined. So I've been quite instrumental in implementing a number of key governance activities. So that's taken a lot more of my time, and they're currently revamping that governance structure as a scouting organisation. So that's going to take even more time. And because I want to get into sort of the NED roles, I've volunteered for a charity, and that's currently got a few challenges with a couple of individuals not seeing eye to eye on the board, and it can take a lot more time than you anticipate because of that. And I think Sophie might have flagged it previously. I think sort of organisation she's been involved in. So I think there's knowing that you're trying to get that experience, but you've got to be quite wary of the time commitment. And doing all of that alongside the day job, alongside being a parent, it's fairly intense, and trying to find to sort of, because I want to flip, so I can flip out of full-time employment and work, with more portfolio career, finding the time to do that search alongside building up your CV, alongside running a family, it can be pretty horrific, to be honest. I think I've got a perfect storm at the moment. So yeah, trying to find sort of the roles to apply for the roles. But it's been really interesting. I mean, I put in an application, I didn't get through, but it was the process in itself I found really insightful, because it makes you think about, the cover letter and what that looks like, and it sort of challenged me to think about, well, what was my, USP? And I think I still need to do a lot of work on that before I can put myself out there and go, right, this is who I am. This is what I can offer you as an organisation, to then find the right matching role. So I know I've got a lot more work to do in that space.
Steph, I'm in exactly the same position. So I've just started working for a local charity in the village, and they'll take every hour that I can give them. Right. And it's an interesting dynamic, because often with charities, Elise, you talk about the tenure of NEDs. Often with charities, there's no tenure. You become a trustee and you could be there forever. Which is something that I think needs to change over time. But like you, I haven't got the proposition nailed yet. I've got a set of skills, I've got experiences, I've got knowledge, but it's how you package that in such a way that then becomes, sellable to a certain extent. And it's quite easy, I think, when people sort of ask about your background, for them to very quickly pigeonhole you, and then immediately sort of assume that you're not suitable. Whereas actually all of us here on this call have spent our entire careers just solving problems, in a different array of different industries, but at the end of the day, that's all we ever do, is solve problems. So right now with this charity, I'm in the process of working out, trying to move them to a better sort of technology platform, which I've got the skills to do. But it's a fascinating experience working outside of, the industry that I'm normally in, to do this with the people that I'm doing it with,
I think you both outline a point that is very important, is the time commitment. So when you go through a role specification, you'll always have, the deadline to apply, and you'll have the remuneration, and then you'll have the time commitment. Don't ever believe whatever it's put in there, because it's going to be more, even if it's not a charitable sector. It's always more. And Tina, I'm sure you have a good experience. So you have like extreme example like COVID, where the demand on non-executive directors increased dramatically. But even in a business as usual environment, I always say whatever is indicated as time commitment, you add at least 20% to it, and it can go far higher. But I'd say never believe whatever the organization believes they need from you, because it will be more.
Perfect, thank you. Did anyone else have any final thoughts or questions for Elise?
Can you tell us more about the partnership then?
Yeah, absolutely. So on our coaching page of the website, at the bottom underneath our individual coaches, we have launched a partnership where we are offering our members to take part in the NED Accelerator, the programme that Elise is offering, or NEDonBoard is offering. So you're able to come through the E2W website and have access to that there. Elise, do you want to talk a little bit more detail about the programme itself?
Sure. So the NED Accelerator course is a course we launched about 4 years ago. So we have kind of a track record in terms of outcome and ROI for the course. So we've designed the course. Sorry, that's my phone. So we really designed the course because I had noted that there wasn't anything practical in the market, and I really wanted to help our members who struggle to secure a role. So it's really a course for those that are aspiring to become non-executive directors, taking them step by step into the process. There are some, the first part of the course is what you will find elsewhere. I'm being very transparent about, which is important. Understand what the NED role is about, the board structures, understanding your insurance policy, the directors and liability insurance, understand the tax implications as well of being a NED, considering ethics, board reports. So it's kind of the foundations from a governance standpoint to make sure you understand what you're getting into. The second part is, I've mentioned a little bit today, which is really the practical roadmap to secure a role, help you define your value proposition, how to write a NED CV, how to write a cover letter, how to prepare for interviews. So a lot of how to, and to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Then the third part is a deep dive into NED roles. So we talk through the charity sector, we talk through housing association. It's something I wanted to briefly mention, because housing association, you have plenty of NED roles, and they are organizations that are at the forefront of diversity and inclusion, and they are definitely open to first-time non-executive directors. So they are a sector to look into when you search for a paid NED role. We talk about public appointment, we talk about advisory board and how it differs. So it's really deep dive into non-exec roles beyond commercial NED roles. And the last part is very practical again. It's interviews of those that were in your shoes not so long ago. And I've been through the journey and now have a portfolio of a non-exec role or got that first role, and we interview them to get their feedback and their experience, what they've done that in their opinion make the appointment happen. So it's a lot of recommendations and strategies to get there. So that's the course we've built with good feedback. But as Katie said, you can look at it on the website and see for yourself. And if you have questions, I think my contact details should be in there. So you can always send me an email if you have questions.
It's an online course as well, and I think it's set at your own pace, isn't it, Elise? So you can kind of in your own time, whatever suits you. It's there's no
Yeah,
time.
so that's also what we wanted when we built the course, because part of our values and our mission is around opening boardroom to diverse professionals, and there is a big thing around age. So we think there is tremendous benefit to have full-time executive joining boards as early as possible in their career. I think it's really positive for for you, basically, professionals. It's also very positive for companies to have people that are actually plugged in and not full-time portfolio NEDs that have retired. So the course is flexible. It's a lot of videos. You can take the course in one go if you want. You probably need 2 days. Or you can take it over a month and just having 15 minutes or half an hour a day. So it's structured in a way where you can do that easily, because it was important for us, for the executive, to be able to digest the course and be able to do the